And a very good evening to you. Welcome to Politics 101, Wednesday evening. David Hinds here, the middle of the week. And tonight we are going to be looking at a range of issues, issues in the news. We are expecting a couple of visitors. One of them is already in the studio. Attorney Darren Wade is already here with us. We're expecting a little bit later Mark Benschop of Benschop Radio straight up to join us. We're all also expecting at some point Lincoln Lewis to also join us. So an all-star team tonight. Last night we weren't able to see your comments because there was a breakdown in communication between StreamYard and Facebook. All kinds of stuff happening. Good evening, Orrin Newton from Buxton, one of our regulars, Winston Henry. Good evening. And Winston, you know you have the name of the explainer who just passed away. Famous Trinidadian Calypsonian Winston Henry, the explainer, passed away 2 weeks ago, was buried a week ago. The explainer gave us calypso such as Rasta Chick and Ras Mas, and you men just like to feel up, but I is a woman who like to deal up. So you share that name with a very famous person, Calypsonian Winston Henry, the explainer. One of our guests tonight, Darren, I heard Darren quoting from Trinidad Rio. We know the Sparrows and the Kitcheners and the Marshall Montano and some of the younger Calypsonians, but there are some Calypsonians who never really became famous outside of Trinidad. They never won the crown, they never won any soca, anything, but are really good. And Trinidad Rio is one of I jumped when I heard Darren quoting from Trinidad, Daniel Rio. People like Rio and Funny and Smiley, some of the lesser known Calypsonians, but they're really, really good. That happens when you have a country that produces so many top class artists. You tend to know the best ones or the ones who win crowns. In fact, Explainer sang a calypso called He Never Won the Crown. He never won the crown. And had been singing, 43 years. And he actually sang a calypso in 1980, Not Me and the Monarchy. All right. I know the king of calypso does be treated like a puppy show. Then I tell them that is the problem. I don't want to live in a shanty, He said, well, you become the king of calypso and you still live in a shanty, not me and the monarchy. And after he sang that song, he didn't win, but they raised the prize money for the king after that calypso. It's really interesting. Some of these guys were really calypso trade unionists. Sparrow, after winning the crown in 56 and 57, boycotted for about 3 or 4 years. And then he came back and then he boycotted again because they weren't paying. They were paying the carnival queen, who was usually a redskin person. They used to pay the Calypso queen more money. The Calypso queen would win a car. And when Sparrow won in 1956 with Gene and Dinah, I think he got $200, if that much. $200 Trinidad dollars. So there were some of these guys who were a calypso, a trade unionist. I have to get somebody who is well versed in the Guyanese calypso scene to really come on here one day, because there were lots of interrelations. Sparrow used to spend a lot of time in Tiger Bay and wrote some of his songs there, and during the riots in the 1960s, he wrote a song. He said, I hear they have big bacchanal in Guyana. They're burning down Bokors, they're burning down Georgetown. But I tell them they can burn down Bokors, they can burn down Fagatees. But don't touch Tiger Bay where all the Wobbins just hang out. Really interesting. And of course, some of the old timers would know BG Plantain, where they had banned plantains coming from Guyana. Eric Williams and Sparrow got an Eric Williams case. He said a lot of the women in Trinidad got trouble because you're banning the BG plantain, the double attack, commenting on an economic issue, but also the sexual innuendo. Really tremendous. Keith Branch is saying here, let me see what he is. If he didn't the lyrics. Yes, me. Well, yeah. Well, Keith was all the thing. Because towards the end of the calypso, he did say yes, me and the monarchy. People thought he was walking away when he sang that song, but towards the end, he said yes, me and the monarchy. You know why I love doing shows like this? There are people who are so knowledgeable in the Caribbean, Guyana. Our people are so knowledgeable on any issue. My students ask me, Dr. Hinds, you're lecturing on politics, and then you switch to jazz, and you switch to reggae, and you switch to poetry. And you have to explain to them that as ex-colonial people, as Black scholars, colored scholars, and intellect, your education cannot be limited because your circumstances were never limited. We were part of an empire, and in a sense, our gaze has always been a broader gaze than our local situation. Peter Wright, at the end of the song, he said, yes, me and the monarchy. It's like Sparrow singing every now and then, puff them down, they love you long and they love you strong. Bust up there, and people think he's singing about sex, about violence against women. And at the last line, he said, and they will leave you eternally. So all the time he's singing, if you beat women, they will love you eternally. And then at the end of the song, the very last line, he said, and they will leave you eternally. And a lot of people miss that last line. The song, the Calypso, of course, was about male violence against women and the consequences. In a sense, saying men think if they beat women, the women will love them more. But the real reality is that if you beat women, eventually they left you on the lap. Quite interesting. Welcome to Politics 101. Tonight we are going to be talking about issues in the news. Darren Wade is here with us, and we're going to bring him in half a second. You know your partner call you. David, you get half a second. Yes, boy. And the conversation gone for half day. In half a second, we're going to be bringing in brother Darren Wade, young, passionate attorney at law and cultural activist. Good evening, Vibert and my brother Coffee is forever here with us, our in-house legalese. You walk the street corners in Georgetown, and Darren can tell you in them villages, those guys, and especially the men, they're very steeped in the law. They're very, 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 very steep in the law. They don't make sport to that. And when I don't know if Coffee's trained in the law, but when I listen to him, he has a really good grasp of the law. Good evening, Darren, out there in Pennsylvania. Good evening, Bonita. Welcome to Politics 101. Tonight we're going to be touching on a range of issues. You know, we had that ruling by the CCJ. We are going to ask a little bit about that. We're going to be talking, should the opposition contest the local government election without a bloated list or with a bloated list? Should they contest? Should they not contest? Should they partially contest? And then we have the stuff going on over there at the Public Service Union, the credit union. A little victory there for one side. They were able to get the annual general meeting not to go on. And lots happening. Let's bring in our guest and get the ball rolling. Good evening, Brother Darren.
Good night to you, Dr. Hinds, Brother Hinds, and all of your listeners. Good evening to you, Guyana.
And let's get straight to it. You know, you're a lawyer, so I know you're careful with these things, but you always have an informed opinion. What's your take on the recent ruling by the CCJ in that petition 99, I think it was, saying that the court, our appeal court, does not have the jurisdiction to hear that case? First of all, were you surprised at the decision? Are you in favor of it? What?
Yes, I was surprised. I a little taken back by the decision. I remember Justice Witt. I remember at the hearing, you know, I think it was a 2-3 ruling.
Yes.
Right. So 2-3 ruling. Some may say that is encouraging that the court is now swaying in our way now. Move from 5-0 to now 2-3. So we're probably going somewhere with the court. Some sort of, depends upon perspective, because it's improving, you know.
Yeah, I was surprised that Jamadar. Take on it, you know, is because he was one of the 2 judges that dissented. I was surprised because he was very strong during the election time on voting in favor of the PPP side. But anyhow, go ahead.
Yes, but Justice Witt took me by surprise because I remember he was during the hearing. He was questioning, because to me he was lost when the PPP lawyers were suggesting that it is not reviewable. So I thought, I mean, that was the one that I thought would have probably made it 3 rather than the 2. So basically just 1 vote, you know. So you know, I believe there need to be reform with our system. I think the Kenyan system it shows that they have an excellent system. If you look at the last election, whereby before even the president is sworn in, it has gone straight to the Supreme Court to be dealt with, the highest court in Kenya, which is the same level with our CCJ. With our system, one could take like 2.5 years before it reached to the CCJ. You know, there is a jurisprudential theory out of the United States called American realism. And American realism says judges are a human being, judges are biased and prejudiced because they are human beings, and they will make decisions based upon their bias or prejudices. That is the American theory in relation to judges. So when you look at the American system, you will see whenever there's a judge for the Supreme Court and so forth, whichever parties in government, they will ensure that they have those judges that reflect their values on the bench. And I believe in American realism, jurisprudential theory. Sadly, whilst in government, we didn't do much. For several years, we didn't appoint judges. That was pure nonsense. The way all we treated, and Claude Singh was a big part of it, the way all we treated Justice George and Justice Cummins was terrible. it was foolish
Yeah.
to us then.
Let's go back to the case.
No,
Let's
but
go
back to the
back to the
case.
case.
But
Yeah.
our answer is there in perspective.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I was taken back by the judgment because I believe the court should be reviewable. All decisions in the court should be reviewable. And this is our final court making this decision. So,
Did you read Jamadar's dissenting ruling?
no, I must be honest with you. I didn't have the opportunity to look at the ruling because at this point in time, it really is here nor there for me because it doesn't benefit me anyhow. But
Right.
as I said, I was shocked about.
Yeah, but Jamadar did argue that the case should have gone before the full court. That he felt that the full court should have heard the case.
That aspect of the
What's your
ruling,
take on that?
I got that aspect from Jamadar ruling by the full court, and I could be honest here. When they went to the court of appeal, I was like, no man, this matter should have gone to the full court. That's my initial inclination. That was my view, to be honest. But even if it went to the full court, it still has to go to the court of appeal after. Then we're up to the CCJ.
Yes.
So that was my view to whether it should have gone to the full court. I was actually surprised that they went to the court of appeal. But nonetheless, the majority of the judges felt that it was not reviewable. So regardless whether or not it went to the court of appeal, it was of no consequence.
Let me ask your learned opinion on this. This is the second or third time that the CCJ has really shut down decisions of the appeal court. Is the appeal court in jeopardy of becoming a non-essential court in our three-tier system?
You see, no court is beyond reproach. None. Even the CCJ. I have looked
at the CCJ has the final say.
Yes, but they are not beyond reproach. They are not faultless. I looked at decisions like the one that dealt with the issue of the appointment of the GCOM chair. The one that the appeal that came from the Court of Appeal, the matter that came from the Court of Appeal, and several questions. Brother, are you there? So I would.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
yes. I just wanted to give you the
when
full
I look
speech.
At those decisions, I have several questions. In relation to the rulings of the court in those matters, because I had respectful view is that those interpretation was not intention of the legislature. It's kind of weird that Brother Hinds not here. You're gone again, Brother Hinds. Okay, you're coming off screen there. Sorry about that. So whether or not the code is not essential, I'm not of that view. It's important that the judges in the Court of Appeal continue to rule and interpret the law as they see it.
There is talk that even though this matter has been decided on by the CCJ, I think the opposition lawyers, and one of our Marlon here is asking, can they bring the case now to the full court? Is there any hope of reviving this case? Somebody was telling me this morning that the opposition lawyers, or one opposition lawyer, seem to be suggesting that all is not lost. What's your take?
I heard that that the matter goes to go to the full court, but that's just, you see, if the judges, if three of the 5 judges say it's not reviewable, that's it instead. My respectful opinion.
Okay.
I initially thought that it was it could have been brought now to, and I admit a post to that extent when I initially looked at the judgment, despite that, it was just a cursory look. I initially thought that it could have been brought at this time and go back, but no. I think it's important enough for the opposition now to start focusing probably on elections.
All right, and now that you've spoken about elections, they've announced a March date for the local government election. The opposition had thrown down the gauntlet, saying it would not contest an election with a bloated list. The list is still bloated. It's not likely to be fixed. Elections are coming. The question is being asked, should the opposition extend its boycott to include local government election, or should it contest the local government election? We saw the AFC chairman coming out and saying the AFC will not contest under the list. Later on, the leader of the AFC came out and said, not so fast. The leaders will have to decide. The PMC, sorry, is somewhat iffy about what they will do. What's your take?
It will be because the list is bloated, right? It will be a wonderful thing for the opposition not to go to the elections, and to stand the ground that this is a bloated list. No credible results you could get from this list. But the question is whether or not the party or the leader will have the support from its following.
But what's your take? Should they participate or not participate? From where you sit?
From where I stand now, looking in, I believe it's gonna be an uphill task for them not to participate.
Why?
It will be an uphill task.
Why?
Because and the first thing, the leader will have to get the support from the supporters. You will have to get the support from the current councils and so forth, the various councils, the various municipalities, the party executive. You will have to get the full support for them. Let me say this. If every member of parliament, if every councillor, every member of parliament, every member from each NDC say, okay, we are not going to run, but we are going to protest. Can you get everyone to come out? And if we start at the parliamentary level and say, okay, we are going to fight for democracy, we are going to have civil disobedience, and get that support, I believe that is the issue at hand here. He must be able to have the backings of the membership.
Okay, Mark Benschop is just joining us. Let me bring him in on this matter. Mark, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Hinds.
Getting some background noise there from you?
Yeah, I'm actually on my second job. I'm babysitting, and Emma is right under here. And you know when kids, and I think Darren, good evening to you, sir.
Hi, Mark.
You know how kids are. Is it that noisy?
No.
That you can give me a quick minute. Let me just quietly and politely ask her.
All right. Yes. So yeah. I was saying, and then you have the PPP. You don't want them. So let us say if you could get a membership, you could have civil disobedience and so forth. Probably in the sense, probably you could say yes. But if you're gonna allow, if you're not gonna run and you're gonna have the PPP to have free reign, what is the use of being away?
What is the use? That's it. If you boycott, you have to be able to prevent the elections from going forward.
Exactly.
And if you're not able to prevent,
a lot of people, I believe, kind to look at personal interests rather than the entire look at this as a whole.
But isn't the role of the party to explain to people the larger picture? Darren?
Pardon me?
Isn't it the role of the party to explain the larger picture to people, to members, to supporters. Because you said people are looking at looking at it from an individual standpoint. And that is natural for human beings. But isn't the party the institution that should be able to show people the larger picture?
You see, the struggle that the party faces, and you have been in the struggle for years, so you would understand where I'm coming from. When you have clean-skinned people generally, as in the sense that persons who are not prepared to get down on the ground and work, a lot of people believe that if you have a program on television, you drive a fancy car, that is enough. But you need to get down on the ground. You got to relate to the people. You have to be with the people. And I believe there is where the party is struggling. You see, I don't want to come out like I'm attacking anyone and so forth, but I believe that is the problem. Whether or not members of themselves could lead.
All right,
an old strain.
Mark, are you there? Mark is not quite ready for us. But I get your point, Darren, that it's really a tough call in the sense that if you don't contest the election, you leave control of 100% of the local government to the PPP.
Let me give you an example. I met a young woman the other night who was a councillor, the Mayor City Council. And I said, how are you doing with Mayor City? Oh, I'm no longer there, I am doing something else. Darren, you know that I am not a politician like you. But with this young woman, it was quite okay for her to be part of the local government system whilst the APNU was in government. But now we are in the opposition. In the country, a lot of people can't ban their belly. That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I think it's Owen Arthur in a famous quote says, hell being in the opposition. Let's go back, try to see if Mark Benschop is ready for us. Mark, good evening again.
Hi, good evening to both you, Darren, and your listeners.
Yeah, we're on this topic about the local government election and the quandary that the opposition apparently have found themselves in, both objectively and subjectively, and that is to contest or not to contest, having declared that they would not contest the election with the voters with a bloated voters list, and now it seems as though there will be local government election with that list. The question, should they contest or not contest? Where do you stand on that?
Well, they should have been fighting vigorously from its inception to ensure that there is no local government elections, especially with the bloated list. The list is not only bloated, it's beyond bloated. We have never seen in any other part of the world or democratic world, so to speak, that an elections list is almost close to the actual population size. We have a list that is approximately 650 plus persons. Our actual population is 750. And this list, the way that it is bloated, is highly questionable. This is what the opposition should have been hinting, and I'm sure that they did, but they should have been more aggressive, hitting the ground and confronting this issue, not waiting until now that a date has been identified for local government elections, because the opposition has been asking for a date to be set. I think they have been a bit confused as to what they really want, a date for local government elections or to get this damn list, this bloated list, fixed once and for all. Forget about local government elections. Let this list fixed. Now, the government or the install regime has put them in a spot now They called the date. They called the bluff of the opposition. They said, look, we have a date now for local government elections. What are you guys going to do? Since that date, March 13th, has been announced, I haven't seen much, or if any at all, activities coming from the opposition side. What we have seen, what we have witnessed, unfortunately, is a bunch of confusing public utterances. One leader of the AFC says there will be no local government elections with such lists. They will not participate. And then another leader, less than 48 hours in the same coalition, said that there will be local government elections and they will partake in the electoral reform process. And then you have another leader on the other side of the coalition saying something totally different. And when you say these things, when you appear, and it is obvious that you're not unified on this particular issue of local government elections, it weakens the spirit of your support base. And the opposition has to be very careful with that sort of rhetoric, that sort of confused message that they're sending out to their support base, because in the end, they are going to be the failure. They are going to be the loser, whether local government elections are held or not.
I want to join with Mark there and say I totally concur with Mark on that point with the mixed messaging. Even today, with this story in relation to the Charandas message, a senior former government minister and a senior member of the opposition was congratulating Irfan Ali for swiftly acting, and the opposition in their statement stated, "You had this information in excess of a year ago, so you deserve no commendation for that."
I tag team there with Darren again, that the confused. Sorry, Dr. Hinds, your mic is lower.
I also want to agree with Mark. This morning on the Bostonian Morning Time, I made the same point. And I happen to know that long before now, attempts were made to get the opposition parties to anticipate these issues and to try to come to a common position. This issue of local government, the issue of the commission of inquiry into the elections. Are you going to participate? Are you not going to be participating? And attempts were made to get the opposition parties together. And as I said this morning, a lot of dithering and lack of focus on a clear strategy of how you deal with these things. And Mark makes what I think is perhaps the most crucial point. And that is that if you come together as opposition forces, what it does is it gives your supporters a sense of confidence that these people at least know what they're doing, and at least they are putting their heads together. I say no more.
Because as small as the AFC may be, within the AFC camp, confusion among themselves. So that by itself, and the person I mentioned about with the statement congratulating Irfan is an AFC member, quite frankly. Not it in the AFC, but they're responsible for Charandas also. It's the same Charandas that is in India. We need to.
Mr. Wade, I didn't hear that, but I like the direction this is going with these confused opposition politicians. Who's that member that congratulated Charandas? I get $10 in my pocket. I can put that on the block right now. That is Mr. Ramjatan.
No, it wasn't Mr. Ramjatan.
Oh, shucks, you disappoint me there.
No, Mr. Ramjatan congratulated. No, he did not.
Who did?
It's on this page. Mr. Patterson is on this page. For swiftly.
Yeah. Yeah. And your brothers, let's get your take. Let's move to the Charandas issue since it was introduced. Mark Benschop, are you surprised that for almost a year, if not more than a year, these people had this information, hid the information, and it got out? And it's only when it got out that they take action, and now they want us to congratulate them for taking action. Mark Benschop?
There is nothing, absolutely nothing to congratulate the PPP or Irfan Ali about in this particular incident. If Irfan Ali, they were caught with their pants down. Now, there are several questions that Irfan should have been asked. One, was he aware of this incident? And if he said no, then there's a high possibility that he's being dishonest. I find it strange that this matter happened since August 1st of last year. And Irfan is conveying the impression that it is only now he has learned about that. If that's the case, then he should pull his foreign affairs minister in for question and ask him exactly what transpired. Because this not only has been a police matter in India, but it is a matter that was indeed conveyed. A message was sent to the Guyana Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Irfan Ali cannot say he was unaware of this particular incident. If he was unaware, if he was aware, sorry, of this incident and did nothing over a year, then there's nothing, absolutely nothing to congratulate Irfan Ali about. And these sort of statements coming from these, sort of politicians in the opposition, it does no good for their support base. It is not good politics at all. And shame on whoever it is that came out in the opposition to swiftly congratulate Irfan. At the same level, I want Irfan Ali to make a statement on that orangutan, Aussie, whatever his name is, Rogers, who on video, we saw the evidence, beat up a woman at Bath Settlement. We want the same Irfan Ali do the same for ministers who have been accused of sexually assaulting girls. We want the same swift reaction when all of the allegations leveled against Bara Jagdeo by Sue and all these things. So Irfan Ali is not going to get a pass from me at all on this particular incident. He's just not going to get that pass. David Patterson rushed out because he probably just wants it to look as though he's praising Irfan for doing something about that guy that actually double-crossed the entire Guyana. That AFC guy, that David Patterson and Ramjatan and all of them had this very information that he was going to double-cross, and they did nothing. So all of them probably laughing now at Charandas. So a lot of confusing things. And I don't want to be as confused as they are in trying to explain my point here on your show, sir.
Thank you very much, Mark Benschop. Go ahead, Darren.
Yes, I'm about to leave to go to another program. But I agree totally with what Mark is saying. In the report, I just want to point out to everyone that in the police report, the same police report that the government has in possession, the video was attached.
You're talking about the Aussie Rogers? What incident you're talking about?
With Charandas.
With Charandas, okay.
It was attached to the police report. More importantly, the government must say whether or not the Indian government reached out to them and asked them to remove Charandas. And it is after, or whether or not after, they failed to remove Charandas aside from India. The Indian government or the Indian High Commission here in Guyana reached out to the opposition. We must not forget that only recently a few opposition MPs met with the Indian High Commission as well. So they must say whether or not the Indian government asked them to remove Charandas.
Exactly.
And after they failed to adhere to the cause of the Indian government, whether or not that was a result, the video was released as a result of that. Gentlemen and viewers, a blessed evening.
Before you go, Darren, you did say you have to go on another show. I hope you ain't going on the other show where the host wants to be the host, the guest, and the co-host, all three together. I hope it's
Mark Benschop. You have to be kind to your brothers. Darren, thanks for coming on. Mark, let's spend the rest of the time talking here about where Guyana is. So we're not talking about any particular issue. You are free to reference issues. But it's been 2 years and 2 months since the government has come to power, or the government was installed in power. And at first, opposition supporters felt that the circumstances under which the government was installed, that maybe within a year or two we will get rid of this government. It's now been 2 years and 2 months that it has become clear that the government is not going to be easily gotten rid of. That the fact that it was an installed government does not mean that it would be involved. That the fact that the Americans have made some significant statements that would remove the government. Put yourself in the position of opposition supporters. How are they feeling? How should they feel? The courts have repeatedly ruled against the opposition. The government is going into opposition support areas and raiding and carrying on and so on. Give us a sense of what you think has transpired in the last 2 years to get us to this point, where the opposition seems to be not only on the back foot, but they seem to be out of sorts, like the West Indies team. Can't even get past the preliminaries.
Well, they're worse than the West Indies team. The opposition is so divided. They're sending, I don't even know what messages that they're sending, but majority of the messages that they're sending, it's always confusing to their support base. They seem more reactive as opposed to being proactive, and that's not a good sign. You don't see them holding press conferences together so that the public, their support base, can see the unity amongst them. And so the longer they stay away from each other, not hold press conferences together, fight each other, sometimes publicly, run down each other. I mean, it is not something that their supporters want. They will drive supporters away from them. The supporters will become disgusted and say, look, that's it. We don't have proper, strong leadership. You have members of parliament running out there, snapping pictures, doing things on their own. There's no togetherness. And one would get the impression that there's no goddamn opposition. There's no, coalition at all. Because when was the last time you saw all of the leaders together, sat at the press conference to say, at the table at the press conference to say, this is our approach on this particular issue. We have one approach on it. This is our approach on the Sioux situation. This is our approach on the investigation that we heard about from Detective Sergeant Bascom. This is going to be our approach with how Charan Das should be dealt with. We're not seeing these things. This is going to be our approach as it pertains to local government elections. You got the leader of the opposition saying one thing. You have Katiyu saying one thing. You have Kemaraj Ramjatan saying another thing. And all of these sort of, different views, it confuses the hell out of their support base. It puts them in a very weak position. And guess what? As weak and fragile as this installed PPP regime is, I don't think the opposition is strong enough to confront these vagabonds in office.
But let me remind you, even as you strongly criticize them, there are two public meetings in which the APNU and AFC participated, and the WPA. Wasn't that encouraging? And what may have gone wrong?
I noticed a couple of guys from Camp Street Prison are watching. We got sorry, Dr. Hinds, I remember him. Where is his name? Mohan Singh is one of them watching from Camp Street Prison. And the other one who is watching from Camp Street Prison is, and there's a reason I want to bring him out. They're watching from Camp Street Prison. Mohan Singh, Camp Street Prison. One other person watching from Camp Street Prison there. I want to take time out to but he probably was removed. But those are guys who are in prison. Mohan Singh and all the other ones, them are in prison for child molestation and so forth and so on. They're wicked guys. I'm surprised that they're watching. But go ahead, Dr. Hinds.
No, I ask you, even as you are critical of the opposition, they did have two public meetings in which all of them spoke from the same platform.
Two public meeting is not politics, Dr. Hinds. Dr. Hinds, let's face reality. You were down in the country. You helped organize a quick public meeting. You gone out of the country. There's no more public meeting. They need public meeting throughout the country. And what I mean by public meeting, I don't mean that by dashing for 2 minutes, walk around, shake hands, take pictures, and you're gone. You got to have a real outreach. Take all of your members of parliament. Where are the other members of parliament? Where are they? Why can't all of them go to Region 10? Let's use Region 10 as an example. But elections time, they're going to jump up and say Region 10 belongs to them, and Region 10 is we own. When was the last time they've gone to Ituni, Pokwani, or Linden together? Why can't Ramjatan and Norton and these members of parliament say this week, we're going to have a real outreach in Linden? Just like you were talking about public meetings and so forth. You can't have a public meeting for one occasion, two occasions, and done with that and say that is politics. You're not doing your support base any justice. And then you get vexed when the PPP, the installed PPP regime, and their vagabonds walk through your stronghold. I heard, I don't know how accurate it is, that the PNC was in Blackbush folder. How are people to know that the PNC were in Blackbush folder, was in Blackbush folder, if they don't show the evidence? They got to stop this nonsensical way of politicking. They believe that their strategy is always the best strategy. Whenever the PPP goes into the PNC stronghold area or coalition stronghold area, the PPP jumps on a mountaintop and they want the world to know. But the coalition seem to want to play this hush-hush politics, this secretive politics. Oh, we're working on this. Oh, we're working on that. To hell with that. Let us see photos. Let us see the evidence. Go into PPP stronghold as well. Unify your support base as well. Unify your group within the AFC, within the PNC, and all these other parties that make up the coalition. There's one party headed by Ms. Sarabo Haley. We don't hear anything about that party. We don't know what they're up to. There's another party headed by Keith Scott. We don't even know what Keith Scott is up to. We don't even see Keith Scott. Oh, help me God. And this is how these people want to win local government elections?
Mark Benschop there, laying it out and laying it on the opposition for shortcomings. Mark, equal opportunity in the 22 months, the 2 years and 2 months, sorry, the government, your perspective on how the government has behaved.
What government?
The PPP government. PPP government.
The PPP is not a government. It's a mafia entity run by a bunch of corrupt gangsters, penny gangsters. That is who they are. That is what they're about a bunch of racist vagabonds. What is there to judge them on other than that? What have they really done? Wasted billions of dollars in corruption and sprinkling out a couple crumbs to their support base and think that that is good that they have done for the country? What good have they done? Dr. Hinds, my blood pressure is going up right now.
Well, try to keep it manageable. No,
nothing. This PPP regime, I want them to forget about the propaganda that they're spreading every day. One simple question I'm asking the PPP trench crappers who are watching right now: why are they afraid of local government elections? Why? I mean, sorry, not local. Why are they afraid of the elections petitions? Why is it that the PPP is afraid of the elections petition? Isn't it obvious that they know that they have rigged the 2020 elections and they don't want the public, they don't want the world to see that? That's the reason why they don't want the elections petitions to be heard. Now, let's get back to local government elections. The last time the PNC and the AFC did a dotish thing. They wanted to run on their own. They were badly beaten. If they have the same silly approach this time around, they will be badly beaten again and 10 times worse this time. So in order to beat the PPP, the corrupt PPP, the AFC and the other parties in the coalition, the PNC mainly, they need to meet and hold one head with immediate effect. Otherwise, you know what? At the local government elections, cat eat the dinner, as we say in Guyana. Do we want cat to eat the dinner? No, we don't want cat to eat the dinner. But these guys got to show that they have balls to stand up and confront, not just innocuous press conferences and little one and two press statement and them nonsense, that it is not going to work. That is not politics.
Let me take you back to the government. The government has been doing a lot of outreaches in African Guyanese communities. The Prime Minister has come out and said that he is an African Guyanese and that
what Prime Minister?
There's no discrimination on the part of the PPP against African Guyanese. Do you think that the strategy will bear fruit?
What Prime Minister, Dr. Hinds?
Well, you can put it however you want to put it.
The guy, let's face reality.
Do you think the PPP strategy of going aggressively into the African Guyanese community?
They're not going aggressive. There's basically a puppet show, a puppy show. And
Okay.
you have a puppet. You have a puppet like Mark Phillips. Mark Phillips is a puppet. Mark Phillips doesn't have any power. He doesn't have any say. He doesn't have any control over African Guyanese. He does not speak on behalf of African Guyanese. So whatever he says is null and void. Now, when it comes to the PPP walking through primarily African Guyanese community and sprinkle little crumbs, it is propaganda. Because they sprinkle crumbs into African Guyanese communities, and in some other communities, they give out hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have no respect for persons in the African Guyanese community. Look how they treat individuals when they protest. Just look at the difference. Look at the difference. And when Mark Phillips if he wants to represent persons of African descent, if he wants to stand up and say something positive about them. But when they're being brutalized by the police force, when they're being discriminated by the very regime that he's part of, let him stand up and let him speak out against that as well. That is my position with Mark Phillips.
There's a question for you on the screen there.
Right now, I don't think we should confuse the masses more by talking about an alternative political movement. Now is not the time for that. I believe that it is still time. The opposition parties still have time to put their differences aside. Stop the big ego. Aubrey Norton doesn't know it all. Aubrey Norton doesn't have all the strategy. Kemraj Ramjitan, who promised only 2 terms and that's it, he seems as though he wants to be leader for life of the AFC. Okay, having said that now, they need to put whatever differences aside and show that they are a unified bunch of people that are ready and serious to confront the PPPC install regime. If they don't do that, then come closer to elections time, political parties, new groups, new movements will pop up. And you know what's going to happen? We will see a division between the coalition. Aubrey Norton, if he is the presidential candidate, because you know the PNC has Congress next year, and we don't know whether he's going to be reelected or not. You know, so they got a lot of things they got to do to unify themselves, unify the coalition before we think of a new movement, political movement. But if they don't get their act together, by time 1 year from now, preparing for the next general elections, I say this publicly: cat eat the dinner. And if any of them go alone in the elections, they will have the lowest turnout we have ever seen. Under Corbyn, in 2006, I believe the turnout was about 35%. If these guys go it alone in the opposition, we will see a turnout for them even lower than that.
But let's go back to the local government election. The argument is that if there is a boycott by the entire opposition, the PPP wins all the local governments, the municipalities, the MDCs. Is that something that you think would be a positive development?
It's never a positive development. It doesn't look good. And obviously, it wouldn't look good at all for the country. But then again, the PPP is not concerned about what looks good or what doesn't look good. They're not concerned about that. They believe that they have the support of the international community, which I doubt. But it's not going to look good. I do believe that they will postpone the elections it's going to be a game. They are going to allow the opposition parties to fall into a trap. And when they fall into this trap now, come by the end of this year or early January, you're going to hear that we cannot have local government now. Let's try to fix the list. So once the list is fixed, there's a possibility we could have local government elections by the end of 2023. And so we are going to see the game playing here. So far, it appears as though the installed PPP regime is playing a better game than these guys in the opposition when it comes to scampishness.
And Mark Benschop there commenting on the local government election and on the state of the opposition. He's calling for unity among the opposition groups. The disunity, of course, is very clear in terms of the public utterances about what to do with the local government election. Mark, have you been following what's been taking place with the PSU credit union situation?
Yes, I have been following that. It's just a facade. And those people who are part of that are definitely part of the interim management, so-called interim management committee, are doing the bidding, the dirty bidding of the PPPC. And it's unfortunate that it is the members. The members are the ones who are getting the wrong end of the stick in this particular situation. Again, it's unfortunate because here's an organization that has majority of its members are of African descent. They have been getting loans. They've been getting loans from the credit union, percentage lower than the banks and so forth. They have been taken care of under the leadership of Trevor Benn. Unfortunately, these individuals do not want the best for them. And we see this in-house fighting between the two groups, the two factions. In the end, it is the members who are definitely going to lose out on this as a result of stupidity on the part of this fighting amongst them.
Mark Benschop there as we come to the end of the program. Mark, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want the opposition to get its act together. It's not too late for that. They can make a difference. I think they have made some slight difference in terms of their work, but they also need to do much more. They need to stop the in-house fighting amongst themselves and to come together as a real coalition. If they continue with the sort of divisive politics from their internal setting, then the PPP will continue to have the upper hand. They need to go out more in their support base, in their stronghold areas, and they need to reach out to their people. They need to talk to their supporters. And in doing so, we can see that difference coming from them. And that with that difference, we can also see that their support base will be comfortable with the leadership. As of now, the support base is not comfortable with the leadership. Instead, the support base are seeing PPP going into their communities, throwing little fresh meat here and there, little stale meat for them, and these sort of things. And you see the like what's happening now with the PNC, and I hope they get the act together with the unity amongst themselves and who leaking information and who this and who that, right? It has to stop. The other thing, I hope Mr. Norton will make that strong decision right now and find a new general secretary. What is he afraid of? I'm publicly saying that he should fire his general secretary. If she doesn't want to return from whatever long leave, you don't be a general secretary of a party and be on leave for months and months and months and months. It's as though you don't give a damn for the party that you represent and you don't give a damn to the support base of the party. If that is the case, Aubrey Norton should start looking for a new general secretary. He should know the drill because when he was general secretary for the under Hoyt, he was talking up a lot. And now he's saying it's a party matter. They can't discuss it publicly. But under Hoyt, he was running around talking up a lot until Hoyt got rid of him. Well, he got to get rid of Gita now and find himself a new general secretary, one that is competent, one that is hardworking, and one that understands grassroots politicking. That individual doesn't have to be from a particular ethnicity to make it look as though you are ethnically balanced or window dressing and these are. We don't need any more window dressing positions for anybody, anyone in the coalition. Aubrey Norton, if he's watching, fire your general secretary right now. Go into the communities, holding hands with Ramjatan, but keep an eye while you're holding Ramjatan's hand.
Mark Benschop in typical form tonight, taking on the opposition, especially the PNC. Thank you very much, my brother. And earlier on, we had Darren Wade who had to leave for another program. Mark, we'll be in touch. And we'll have you back earlier rather than later.
You sure? After tonight's performance, you have me back, man? You sure? Thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
Thank you very much, my brother. And to you all, the audience, good night. I noticed some questions that I didn't see to ask Mark. Sorry about that. His view on the CCJ, etc. Coffee, I didn't see it. I'm now seeing it. But thank you all, and tomorrow night we will be back with more of Politics 101. As usual, you know that we love you.